Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to my channel for another Hot Toys 1/6 scale Spider-Man figure unboxing and review video. That's right, today we're going to be taking a look at none other than the stealth suit Spidey himself from Spider-Man Far From Home. I personally couldn't be more excited. I've seen this guy in person a couple of times, and he's looked absolutely fantastic. Fingers crossed that upgraded suit isn't too far behind, because of course Hot Toys just put out their semi-regular but also semi-not image of what's coming up next, and there was a bunch of exciting announcements there. I cannot wait to get the rest of those figures, but nevertheless we're going to be taking a look at stealth suit Spidey himself today, and I picked up mine from toyswonderland.com. Link for that is in the description below. He's in stock and ready to go right now. They do have 12-month installment plans though if you are a fan of paying your figures off over time. There's also a site-wide Christmas sale. More information is at that link. Also, while you are down there, why don't hit that subscribe and bell notification icon so you're notified as soon as brand new content goes live on the channel. Also check out the join button for Justin's Collection Plus to get early access to some videos, as well as a 5% off code to toyswonderland.com. What we are going to do now though is get the box off the turntable and do the unboxing. And here of course we have the box art for Spidey himself. It's the oversized box art. It's absolutely enormous because of course this is the deluxe version that comes with the Molten Man display base. There is a regular version, and the only real difference as far as I can tell is the Molten Man display base. The regular one just comes with a classic Hot Toys style stand. I would have been perfectly fine with that, but give me a diorama style display base, and for those of you who know the channel well, you know I love my diorama style display bases. Nevertheless, here is the box. I love the Mysterio helmet motif, with Spidey of course on the front there. It's got this sort of smoky but also pearlescent effect, and I really like the way it looks. Very impressive piece of imagery. You can see as well Spider-Man's stealth suit, a little bit more of Mysterio's costume, and a overall black and dark motif. I'm loving the way this looks. Of course this is a slipcover, so you can of course slide off the front and reveal the artwork on the underside there, and it's equally gorgeous. Here is Spidey in his stealth suit with Molten Man in the background, this sort of Illuminati symbol that is the logo for Mysterio, kind of. Now of course on the inside, another piece of artwork with Mysterio and Molten Man as well, and then the figure himself. Let's get this guy out here. I'm curious about a couple of things. First of all, that display base, because it was actually designed, it was 3D modeled by a separate company, not Hot Toys themselves. It was a company called Studio Hive. Hot Toys must have been very impressed with their work, because recently they've started working more with them. Studio Hive actually did the 3D modeling for the child in quarter scale, for those of you who don't know that. And here we have it. It's absolutely enormous, but it's currently blocking Spidey himself, and we do want to get him out here because he is, of course, the star of the show. Now, I'm curious to see how this material will hold up. We'll have to see a little bit later in the video, but for now, first impressions are pretty positive. I'm really liking the look of this suit. More on him in just a second. Now you can see he does come with a bunch of stuff in the box. There is actually a second tray underneath with even more goodness. So what we are going to do now is get all of this stuff laid out in the light box and take a closer look at everything he comes with. And here we have all of the accessories that come with the deluxe stealth suit Spidey. Now as you can see, it's a fairly decent value proposition, at least for me personally, but if you're getting the standard one, you're literally taking away the biggest piece, leaving you with this. Granted, you will of course get a regular display base, but honestly, my suggestion to all of you out there is go for the deluxe one, get this display base. It is absolutely gorgeous. We may as well talk about it right now, in fact. So yes, this is sculpted by Studio Hive, a company that sometimes does these 3D sculpted pieces, and of course now they're working with Hot Toys. That's absolutely awesome because this piece is super high quality. Look at Molten Man's face. He looks evil through and through. The paint applications, of course, are Hot Toys' usual level of quality, but this time, the sharpness of the detail on this base is something that we kind of don't see. Usually with the diorama-style display bases, the detail is super soft, but not true here. This stuff is incredibly sharp and looks absolutely awesome. Now, of course, this piece does light up. Batteries are not included. You can see on 1 and on 2. 1 is just the lights literally turned on. You can see in select areas they are lit up, but honestly, under normal lighting, it doesn't look sort of spotlighty like it's looking here where there's individual lights. It's diffused a little bit more. If you do have it under super harsh lights, yes, you will of course see the individual LEDs, but honestly, under normal lighting, it looks really good. Now, anyone in the audience who has epilepsy, please turn off the video now because there are going to be some flashing lights. If you switch it to option number 2, they do sort of pulsate on and off. On the camera, it's coming across like they're flickering. In person, they just nicely and gently pulsate on and off. I don't know if that's the effect that a lot of people will be using. They'll probably be going for the on option and just having this hardwired, but for me personally, I like the option. I love that LED in the back of the mouth there. This guy looks absolutely awesome, and honestly, I can't give Hot Toys and Studio Hive enough praise for that piece. Now, of course, he does come with a dynamic pole to insert on the middle there, and you can have him in some dynamic poses. Of course, that's the nature of the beast when it comes to those style of accessories. Will I be having him in the air swinging? Honestly, I wish I could, but I don't have enough room to do that. I envy those of you out there who have the really awesome big display cases, who have room to display these Spidey figures in the air. Now, one surprise accessory that I didn't actually expect him to include is a skin tone neck. That means you can actually use the previously released Spider-Man Tom Holland head sculpts with this guy right here, and of course the new one that's coming with the upgraded suit as well. They could have easily omitted this, but I'm super glad they didn't. Of course, the skin texture looks fantastic. It's pretty much identical to the one that came with the homemade suit Spidey from Spider-Man Homecoming. I just really didn't expect them to do that. Hot Toys often sort of make you buy other figures to make the best use of the accessories. This time, I'm glad they didn't do that. Now, he does actually come with swap-out lenses. They're magnetically attached, and you'll see this a little bit later in the video, but these are the ones that have the actual swap-out eyepieces, so you get a couple of different expressions. You can, of course, chop and change, get him winking or squinting or doing all sorts of funny Spidey expressions. The other ones, however, do have the actual articulated joint in there, so they can flip up. These ones are static, those ones can in fact move. Now, this being a Spidey figure, of course he comes with a bunch of webs. These are the usual culprits from Hot Toys. They're pretty basic, we always get them. We also always get this funnel piece, which is pretty darn awesome. You can use this to web up enemies or even have it stuck to a wall, but by far my favorite web accessory is this newer style one. It's spooled up, I love the way it looks, a little bit more dynamic than those basic ones. Now, of course, he does come with a bunch of hands. These we haven't actually seen before because, of course, the stealth suit is all new. You can see a really nice level of detail and of course paintwork as well. These things are chock full of it and they look fantastic. Super impressed with the amount of detail on these gloves, and of course it extends to the stealth suit itself. What we are going to do now though is get the stealth suit Spidey out here and take a closer look. And here we have him standing straight up and down the light box, no crazy poses or accessories or anything like that. By the way, let me know if you'd like a pose session on this guy right here. I can definitely make that happen. But so far, I am loving the way this guy looks. This thinner style body that they developed for the Tom Holland Spidey figures, honestly, it's paid off. And it's paid off in spades. This guy looks pretty much as faithful as, honestly, I've ever seen in action figure format to the stealth suit from the film. I'm loving the way this looks. I love the detail as well on the various different sections of the suit. You'll see in just a second what I'm talking about. There are a bunch of different materials here. Will this suit crease over time in dramatic and dynamic poses? Potentially, but they've done something to partially avoid it, and as I said, you'll see that in just a second. Is this guy my favorite MCU Spidey figure? Honestly, it's a little bit too early to tell, but I am getting won over by how super simple, clean, and effective the dark suit really does look on the shelf. It stands out by not being overly colorful, because of course all of the other Spidey suits are. There's something about a stealth-inspired SWAT/military style looking Spidey suit that really does work for me. What we are going to do now though is take him off the rotating turntable, punch in, and take a closer look at the details. And here we have him up close and personal, and I have to say, this guy looks absolutely fantastic. There is a ton of detail, both throughout the suit and also in the sculpted bits as well. Yes, there are actually a surprisingly large amount of sculpted pieces, including that head sculpt. It's not a fabric mask. Sometimes people really don't like that they don't do fabric masks on Spidey figures. Honestly, if it looks like it's supposed to, looks like the movie and like the material on the suit, I'm fine with it. In fact, I prefer it because that means you won't have any seams. Or tell me, when you have a Spidey figure and you try and take off the head and you feel that fabric sort of wriggling and moving around underneath your fingertips, it's not the best feeling, and sometimes you can get the sort of seams all mixed up and the lines don't quite match up. This, in my opinion, is the best way to do it. The texture looks absolutely fantastic. It looks like it's supposed to. Honestly, I was convinced that was a real strap around the front of the goggles there, but no, it isn't. And yes, these are the ones that can lift up. Honestly, it might just be me, but I can tell that's Tom Holland's eyes behind there. I like that they're slightly off to one side there. It's a nice touch, but yes, as I said, I can tell who that's supposed to be. It may be just because, of course, it's Spidey, but honestly, I do think they've taken that off their already fantastic Tom Holland head sculpt. And I do love the fact that these glasses do actually move. That is a really nice touch. Now, let's talk about the suit. There are some things they've done really well here. First of which is the spandex underlay. You can see right here on the arms, going up onto the torso, that is all a super stretchy spandex. But unfortunately, they covered it up with this rubbery style material. This one is a really hard rubbery style plastic. Then it goes down to this sort of semi-rigid material. It can still move, as you can see, but it's more akin to what you'd see on something like a Captain America figure. A tighter weave with a little bit of a plastic paint over the top. It's really hard to describe. You'll have to see it when you get it in hand and feel it. You'll know what I mean. It's a sort of soft but also semi-firm material which does struggle to move. Honestly though, I don't think it's going to crease over time. Have they finally cracked it with a Spidey figure that you can pose? It still looks fantastic, faithful to the movie, and won't crease? Only time will tell, but honestly, first impressions are very, very positive. I'm loving this material. The rigid parts, though, honestly, they don't move that much, and they're on the areas that kind of don't move anyway, so I don't think you're going to have any worries about them getting creases either. I'm very impressed of the choices of material and the placement as well. Now, weirdly enough, in the film, this logo didn't have any logo in it. It was just a circle, which again is accurate to the suit. Some people were speculating a SHIELD logo was supposed to be there and they just cut it out at the last second, leaving the circle. I don't know if that's true or not. Let me know if you have any information on that down in the comments below. Now you can see a ton of tech detail throughout the entire thing. This suit is gorgeous. Honestly, in my opinion, it didn't get enough screen time. I would have loved to have seen Peter wearing this suit a little bit longer in the movie because I just love the way it looks. There is so much detail, even a little utility belt with pouches. It kind of looks like a cross between a ninja, SWAT, and also Spider-Man noir suit. I'm super impressed with how this guy comes across. It might honestly be one of my favorite Spidey designs. Now moving down to the legs, you can see the little knee pads. They are integrated into the suit, but there's more spandex here on the knees. They've actually used it on all of the jointed areas, which is just genius. You can see it stretches down here where it's nice and spandexy and stretchy. Then on the areas that sort of don't move that much, they're more of that rigid style material. Genius level choices, in my opinion, to put in the areas that do matter. Now, of course, you did see it, a split cut boot design for the ankle. Trust me, I'm going to be singing its praises throughout the course of this video, because this is genius. I love the way they've done this as well. You have a floating piece for the upper boot, then the lower boot is separate, then the foot again. That means you're getting optimal range of motion. Look at that tilt and pivot. That is absolutely awesome. So too is the detail on the sculpt and the paint. This thing is smothered in dirt and grime. You can have him standing atop your Molten Man display base, and honestly, I think it's gonna look really awesome. Now for a quick side-by-side comparison, here is another figure from the Spider-Man Far From Home line. For some reason, people got really confused when I reviewed this guy and I said he was from Spider-Man Far From Home, and then the same thing with the homemade suit. Guys and gals, they were actually in Spider-Man Far From Home, especially in the Mysterio scene, so like, watch the film and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Nevertheless, I love this upgraded version of the Homecoming suit. It had the upgraded ankles, you don't have that weird sort of gapping issue. I love this figure, but honestly, having the stealth suit now standing next to him, you can tell that the technology has kind of moved on. I love the sculpted head. Hopefully, going forward, we only get sculpted heads for Spidey figures, because honestly, it eliminates my biggest pet peeve, which is the seam down the front. No matter how hard they try, they can't hide it. Trust me, the best way to do it is to sculpt it. They can do it pretty darn close, as you can see right here with Stealth Suit Spidey. The body underneath, I'm fairly sure is identical between the two. They look pretty much the exact same height, the joints are in all the same places, and it would make sense because of course it's still Tom Holland's Spidey. Either way, these two look absolutely fantastic together. I'm literally counting down the days until we get that upgraded suit. I personally cannot wait. Next up, here we have the Infinity War Iron Spider suit. Again, he was seen in Far From Home wearing this suit. It might honestly be the Spidey film with the most amount of suits of any live-action film. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's true. There were so many, and I love every single one of them. Yes, including the Iron Spider suit. I know a lot of people would prefer the comic book look. I like that it's a little bit different. I love the dark blue and the gold and the red. It all plays so nicely together. It kind of looks on camera like he's slightly taller than the stealth suit. I honestly can't fathom why. They're identical in height. The bodies are very, very similar, again, if not the exact same. Maybe subtle changes here and there. I don't know why the lens is distorting it, but trust me, in person, they're the exact same height. Now, speaking of the exact same height, these two definitely aren't. This is, of course, the Advanced Suit PS4 Spidey figure. I love this figure. He's absolutely gorgeous through and through. The body's fantastic. The sculpted head, see what I'm talking about? The sculpted head really does work wonders here, and it looks pretty much faithful to the rest of the suit as well. Fingers crossed they keep doing it, but technically, this stealth suit was seen in the PS4 game around the time that Far From Home actually came out. Insomniac published an update, put the suits in the game, therefore you could technically pop him in your PS4 game shelf if you're not collecting the MCU line. It's a nice cross-compatible figure. I love it when we get those. It means that basically we can slot them into various areas of the collection. We're not tied down to collecting one particular line. I really like that, and I really like that these two are different body styles. I know, in the game, they're not technically like that, but in figure format, honestly, I really like the differences in the details and also in the height. Just going over articulation, now bear in mind, this is my personal copy of the figure, so I'm going to be slightly more careful. I'm sure when you get yours in hand, you can push the joints slightly further than I'm willing to go. Now, starting off with the head sculpt itself, it's on a separate neck joint. That means there's one ball joint in the head, one at the actual neck itself, which means a significant range of motion, both forwards, back, side to side, swivel, and pivot. More than enough, in my opinion, for a Spidey-style figure. Now, you can see I have been moving this arm, and you can see this shoulder pad is starting to lift up ever so slightly. Range is about there, and of course you can go forward as well, but do bear in mind this is a soft rubbery style piece and it will have to be futzed around with. You can pull it down to of course hide the gapping. You do have a butterfly joint at the shoulder, a swivel at the bicep, double bend there at the elbow, which does a really nice past 90 range, and of course a regular 1/6 scale joint for the wrist itself. The torso can crunch just a little bit forward back, swivel and pivot side to side. The suit is fairly restrictive. It's a semi-rigid rubbery style material, but underneath there is a spandex layer, so you will get a little bit of movement, but not a hell of a lot. Same thing with the legs going forward. Out, you do of course have a swivel at the upper thigh, a double bend there at the knee, and my favourite, a split cut boot design for the ankle. And just quickly before we move on, I forgot to show you the coolest point of hidden articulation. It's so hidden that honestly, I didn't see it, but of course, once you do see it, you'll always see it. It's a cut in the foot itself for toe articulation. So sneaky, and as I said, honestly, I did miss it in the previous clip, but I picked it up after the fact, and honestly, I love the fact that they popped that in there. Moving on to the 3 cool and 3 annoying things about Stealth Suit Spidey. The first annoying thing is the fact that to use the swap out lenses, you have to change the entire goggle piece. They could have honestly done it, in my opinion, on the ones that can move. Maybe they wanted to save the detail on the underside of the lenses instead of this sort of clip section right here, but that works perfectly fine for me. I think that a lot of people wouldn't really have complained about that. This gimmick does work, but in my opinion, they were so close to perfection with getting this to actually move and also including the swappable lenses, they just didn't execute it as well as they could have. A second annoying thing, and I don't know if I'm going crazy or not, I've looked at a couple of images from the film and I guess it kind of looks like this. But are the lenses too far apart? It kind of gives him a bit of a goofy look. This piece in the front here is really wide, and honestly, from a distance, he kind of looks a little bit weird. You can pose it away and get him to look really badass, but from some angles, I think personally, it looks kind of goofy. The third annoying thing isn't the fact that they're including this absolutely beautiful work of art Molten Man display base. I'll talk about this again in just a second. It's the fact that with the deluxe, you don't also get the standard display base. I know, that's common fare with Hot Toys, but it seems like no matter which version you're getting, you're kinda missing out on something, whether it's the standard with this base, or with the deluxe, you're missing out on the standard base. Maybe you want to pop this back in the box and then save some space for a little while, say your collection is growing. I don't know, it's just a little bit frustrating that you don't also get that really awesome green classic Hot Toys style Spider-Man display base with the deluxe one. The first cool thing about Spidey is that they used spandex in the high traffic joints. I'm talking elbows, I'm talking shoulders, and of course knees. That means that fingers crossed, if you have him in dynamic poses using one of those aforementioned joints, you shouldn't have any issues with creasing. The second cool thing is the inclusion of this neck piece. As I said earlier, I didn't know this was coming in the box, but I was really glad to see it laying in there because of course that means you can use one of your Tom Holland head sculpts with this figure. Hot Toys absolutely didn't have to do this, and I know there'll be people in the comments, Justin, this is so expensive, of course Hot Toys had to do it. No, they really didn't. You could have simply just not used a Tom Holland head sculpt, or had to go out and pick up the homemade suit one from Homecoming to get a neck piece like this, but they didn't do it, and honestly, I'm really glad. The third cool thing about the deluxe Stealth Suit Spidey has to be this base. I know we've already taken a look at it, but I don't think anybody's going to be complaining because this thing is absolutely gorgeous. There is so much detail in here. It lights up, it's chock full of paint and sculpt work. Studio Hive outdid themselves with the look of this piece. Right there, this thing looks menacing as heck, and honestly, I'm in love with this display base. I know I was just complaining that they didn't include the regular one, but at the end of the day, I'm not all too upset because this guy looks awesome. Just wrapping up on Stealth Suit Spidey from Spider-Man Far From Home, was this the figure that I was most excited about to be announced from the film? Initially, no, I couldn't really care less. It was seen for a very brief time, it was pretty cool, and it was pretty basic in terms of its look. Now having it in figure format, I love it. And I don't think it's to anyone's surprise, they've done some things right from an aesthetic perspective, but also from an engineering perspective. I'll talk about aesthetics first. It's very simple. There's not a hell of a lot of detail here in terms of the paint. It's very clean, it's mostly material, but the areas that are sculpted and painted are beautiful. Not to mention the Molten Man display base. Most of the budget, in my opinion, went into that guy because he's fantastic. The outfit also looks really, really good. There's a ton of actual sculpted in detail, but in terms of paint, it's pretty clean. Now, when I'm talking about engineering, I'm talking about the choices of the material, especially in the jointed areas. There is genius level decision making here by Hot Toys in all of the high traffic joints, elbows, shoulders, knees, and also the inner thighs where you have the legs actually split out. They're made of spandex. Finally, Hot Toys have done something to actually help with the movement of a figure and the posability over time. Fingers crossed this guy can be put into some really dynamic poses and just straight up left there. We don't have to want to keep tweaking it to make sure the suit is increased. Fingers crossed this guy stands the test of time. The rest of the suit is made out of a really interesting sort of composite style material, which I don't think will crease, but you'll have to be the judge of that when you get yours in hand. Overall, this thing comes together and just works marvelously. I love it. It might not have been my most hyped figure from the Far From Home line, but now having it in person, it absolutely is. I like it over and above the upgraded tech suit from Homecoming and also the homemade suit from Far From Home. Even with the improvements in terms of the toe articulation, I just love this guy. He's super clean, the base is fantastic, and of course you do have that added level of extra detail in the suit that the homemade suit is missing, but also some of the benefits of the posability. Overall, I'm just in love with this release. Now, I picked up mine from toyswonderland.com. Link for that is, of course, in the description below. They do have 12-month installment plans if you're a fan of paying off your figures over time. There's also a site-wide Christmas special on until the 31st. Check the link down below. Also, while you are down there, why not check out the link to 6 Scale Network, the awesome Facebook group. Come along, chat figures, share photos of your collection, and of course, see what's coming up next on the channel. Like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next video.